Hello and welcome. Our top focus remains in Nigeria, where protests against economic hardships have turned deadly. At least 13 people have been killed in the rallies across the West African nation, as per rights groups, with fears of the death toll mounting further. As per reports, many deaths took place in the Kaduna state, as thousands across Nigeria marched against the rising cost of living. Nigerian security forces fired live ammunition and tear gas to break protests in major cities. Some Nigerian media outlets have reported that the death toll is feared to be higher at around 17, and that people have lost lives in major cities like the capital of Abuja and Kano. In Kano, the country's second largest city, protesters set fire to tires outside the state governor's office, and police responded with tear gas, forcing most of the demonstrators back. Protesters later ransacked and set a digital center of the Nigeria Communications Commission ablaze. They also raided a warehouse near the Kano governor's office, while police fired shots into the air to disperse the looters. A 24-hour curfew was later imposed in the city. Hundreds of protesters also demonstrated in Abuja, the commercial capital, Lagos, and several other cities. People chanted slogans against President Bola Tinubu, calling him a thief. Now, the mass demonstrations comprise mainly of young people demanding an end to poor governance in Nigeria. Inspired by similar rallies in Kenya, they mobilized the protest on social media, using the hashtag #EndBadGovernance in Nigeria.
You cannot move from point A to point B in this country today without not necessarily breaking your neck. The cost of transport has gone up. You cannot begin to nurse the idea of sending your words to the school in this country right now without not even have to think 100 times.
Nigerian officials had warned against attempts to replicate the violent demonstrations in Kenya, where at least 50 people were killed. While the protest anxiety prompted the Nigerian government, led by President Bola Tinubu, to offer multiple concessions ahead of the rallies. Nigerian lawmakers have passed a bill to double the minimum wage, and the state oil firm announced new jobs for the first time in a decade. Despite this, angry youth turned up in huge numbers. Security officials say the protests have been hijacked by criminals and insurgents.
The IMN members have hijacked this, they are part of this protest. And that is what we have noticed. That is why we are drawing the attention of the public, since that some bad elements are trying to hijack this protest.
Earlier, President Tinubu had warned that the protests would lead to anarchy and said the military would intervene to avert a crisis. Protesters have vowed their rallies will continue in the coming days. Africa's most populous country is struggling with soaring inflation of over 34%, and a sharply devalued naira. The prices spiked after President Tinubu ended a costly fuel subsidy and liberalized the currency more than a year ago. Many protesters say they are battling hunger and poverty due to the price rise.
Nothing is actually working in Nigeria anymore. Even as an health worker, I can't fend for my family very well. I can't provide most of the basic needs of my family, not because I am not hardworking, but because the economy is so bad that money has no value again. When we go to the market, you spend the whole of your salary and even borrow more. So nothing is working.
Will Nigeria be able to contain the violence, or will it head into chaos? Now, for more on this, we have with us Ambrose Igboke, a PhD and global affairs analyst, joining us live from Enugu in Nigeria. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Alison.
Yeah. At least 13 people have been killed in the demonstrations across Nigeria. What are the latest details that you have for us?
Today has been more peaceful than yesterday. Yesterday, there was a clash between overzealous security agencies and also overzealous protesters. The preparations towards the protest has been that of heated arguments. It has that of threats from government officials. It has been that of threats also from some security agencies. But also some other government officials also have some reconciliatory approach to it, some engaged. The problem has been that instead of telling people not to come out, the government would have prepared in a different way for the protests. I did recommend some days ago that what would have been better would have been the government to engage with these people instead of telling them not to come out. You can reach an agreement, say, okay, let's prevent the issues of the protests being hijacked or infiltrated by hoodlums or by fifth columnists who are, rioters rather than protesters, like what we saw happen in Kano. What the government would have done was to provide places. For example, the FCT minister came out to say that the popular Eagle Square in Abuja, that is home to protests all over the years, will be shot against the protesters. That was a wrong move. I mean, some things like that would have opened up the Eagle Square for them and then provide the adequate security so that that would have contained them in a place. But where it seems we have not been able to learn how to manage protests over time.
Right. Ambrose, on that, the Nigerian troops and police have tightened security in major cities in response to the protests. This, of course, reflects the heightened tensions. What are the security forces doing to ensure the protests remain peaceful?
There are a lot of intelligence gathering going on, which we are aware of. And also, there have been also a lot of engagements. For example, one of the states in Nigeria, Edo State, and in some other states, we saw the police commissioners there, talking to the protesters, and they were having some engagements. The same thing, like the chief of defense staff just some few minutes ago, that's 15 minutes ago, and a press conference with the media where he briefed the media that the military is on standby in case the situation gets out of hand. We don't pray that it gets to that point, but he just had a briefing with the media community. Also, a lot of states, like in Bayelsa State yesterday, the governor had a deal with the protesters that, okay, you're allowed to protest, we'll give you the cover and the security. Meanwhile, your right to protest should not infringe on the right of freedom of movement of other citizens. So therefore, workers went to work in Bayelsa State and other states yesterday. Protests took place, and it was peaceful. So I think it was the approaches by the different states and different climes that caused the clashes. What happened in Kano, Maiduguri, and some other places were infiltration from people from hoodlums who caused riots, who focused on looting, rioting instead of having protest. I think it's a failure of intelligence. And it's a failure of security for that not to be nipped in the bud.
Now, the hashtag End Bad Governance in Nigeria movement seeks an end to police brutality, improved human rights, and stable economic policies. What are the reasons that have pushed Nigerians to protest?
I think what you mentioned earlier, the first you mentioned in terms of police brutality, was what did the last protest, which was called the EndSARS protest that happened in 2020. This one was focused more on the economic issues and the issues of governance, the issue of